All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast. And for the second segment of today's show, we're going to talk about if MLB should switch to robot umpires. Now, the reason for me coming up with this segment for today, and this was definitely something that was going to get talked about at some point while I was doing this show, um, is an article that came out regarding Pittsburgh Pirates' Brian Hayes, third baseman. So he was very critical of Major League Baseball, and he is really calling for there to be an automated ball strike system. So ABS, as it's abbreviated. I was trying to be like robot umpires is ABS, but yeah, that's what it is. It's automated ball strike system. So that's what ABS stands for. Yeah. So I mean I would have just said robot umpires, but it's got to sound you know sophisticated, mature. So professional. So yeah. So basically, this incident occurred against the Braves. This was earlier in the week. Bill Miller made a really bad called third strike on a pitch that was way outside the strike zone. You could probably find the video anywhere on YouTube. You've probably already seen it. And so Hayes expressed a lot of frustration on social media over it, and he's calling for the ABS system to be adopted into Major League Baseball. Now, Major League Baseball actually has been testing this out in AAA. So they allow a computer to make calls in some games, and they also give players the ability to challenge a human umpire in others. But Rob Manfred said that it kind of it's not going to happen it's not going to happen next year. I think that's what I was reading. Yeah. So the system's unlikely going to be used in 2024. But they've also used it in the Atlantic League's 2019 All-Star Game and the 2019 Arizona Fall League. Those are just some other things that they've used this for, just to test it out. But I guess really what it comes down to is, from reading all that, is what do I think? And I think at some point it needs to happen, because I feel like, especially this year, and again, mostly for me, I'm just watching Yankee games, but it's happening everywhere. Like, you've seen the video of, what Brian Hayes is, complaining about, I'm sure. Umpires have kind of, and a lot of fans talk about this, umpires, for some reason now, they like to really influence the game. And, I feel like there's definitely times where, I mean, they also get, like, if a player thinks it's ball four or something, and they flip the bat in a way that the umpires don't like it, then the next pitch, no matter where it is, could be a strike, because the umpire is just, upset with how the player, demonstrated thinking that he was going to walk to first base. Like, there's things like that, but I just feel like the strike zone, the umpires, like, it's so inconsistent, and the one thing that really annoys me is when you're watching a game on television and they have the strike zone box in front of the catcher's mitt, and I'm saying to myself, listen, yeah, that's the strike zone, but the umpires are not going to call it like that. They're going to call it how they want to call it. So I feel like it's meaningless having it there. I don't know. That just annoys me. But yeah, umpires like to have an influence on the game, and they call guys differently. I mean, Aaron Judge. I mean, how many times has he gotten called for a pitch that's below his knee? It's just, and it can't happen. So you gotta have something to change that. Now, how is it gonna work? I mean, we'll just have to wait and see. But I think you really got to consider doing that, because it's just at this point. I mean, watching some of these games, I mean, there are so many strike calls where you're like, that's not a strike. I mean, even for my team, when the Yankees get out of an inning, out of a jam, off of a call, I'm like, well, that wasn't a strike, but we'll take it. It's just like I don't get it. And you can look at guys like Laz Diaz and Angel Hernandez. A lot of these guys that have been around for a long time, and they are not good umpires. Their strike zones are not good. And like I said, they like to influence the game, and I mean, I guess it takes the human element out of the game, but with technology always advancing and, things are always changing, it's like, how can you not have that? I mean, you have instant replay, and I mean, I think you should add it. I think it should be added. But there's a lot of testing that goes into that, and that's why they're doing that in the minor leagues, and I believe they did that the same thing with like the rule changes too. Um, because they have to have some kind of got to do some kind of experimenting before you actually implement it. So, but I really think that they should do that because I mean, if the players are getting frustrated too, and managers are. I mean, there's always managers complaining. See it all the time. I mean, Laz Diaz, had a terrible, game in Chicago when the Yankees were there, and Aaron Boone had his meltdown, and he mocked Laz Diaz's strike three call. So, I mean, you really got to consider doing that. And I think they're going to. It might take a couple years. I mean, if it says it's not going to be implemented next year, then, you got to see. But right now, it's just, I mean, it's as bad as it's ever been. I feel like every year it gets progressively worse and worse, and there's got to be something. And the problem is when umpires get calls wrong, it doesn't seem like they're held accountable for it. There's no accountability. What you get, and you get this with the NFL too, is if they get a call, if a referee gets a call wrong, there are times they will come out and say, yeah, we got the call wrong after the game. So how does that help us as fans? When it's like, when even we know you got the call wrong, but, it doesn't get resolved in game. It gets resolved after the game. You sometimes show accountability after the game. And it just ruins, it really, and it affects big games. I mean, you look at, the NFL with, the Saints and the Rams in the championship game, several years ago with the, no pass interference call that, would have gave the Saints a first down and they probably would have won the game. But then again, they got the ball in overtime and Breeze threw an interception. But that's a football thing. Then you look at baseball. Now, he did feel very bad about it, but Armando Galarraga's near perfect game, right? Now, this was before replay. So, there's nothing you could do about it at the time. But Jim Joyce calls the guy safe at first base, and Galarraga ends up not getting a perfect game. Now, that's a guy that felt very bad about what he did. I watched the video of the next day where I think Galarraga was doing like was giving out the lineup cards, and you could see like Jim Joyce was like so like beat up over it. He was in tears that he messed up that call. So I think a lot of people give him a pass, but umpires have made a lot of mistakes over the years, is what I'm trying to say. And the lack of accountability sometimes with these referees, with these officials, with these umpires, it definitely gets on a lot of people's nerves because they have to answer when they get a call wrong. And Major League Baseball especially, when you're watching a game and you see a pitch way out of the zone that gets called a strike, I mean, that's a problem. And it happens on a consistent basis. That's a problem. And that needs to that needs to get resolved. I mean, they did a lot this year. We talked about the rule changes and how I love the rule changes. This is something that needs to change because it impacts the game. It really does impact the game. And a lot of players, they don't have the same strike zones as other players. I mean, you got a wide range of size and players. You got Jose Altuve, you got Aaron Judge. Everyone's strike zone is different. And sometimes calls are not made the right way. But you know what? We'll see. They're testing it out, and hopefully, it eventually becomes a thing because it's it really is getting to a point where it's like we need change here. We really there needs to be something. There needs to be something. Somebody needs to be held accountable, and we need robot umpires. So that's really what it all comes down to, is robot umpires. See how it goes. And the other thing is this. It's an automated ball strike system. So it's really just going to be that. But I'm guessing then, you'll have a first base umpire. You'll have a, third base umpire still. Yeah, because then, I mean, it's probably somewhere. I just have missed it. But, what about like a check swing? I mean, I guess you still got to have the human umpires for that. I don't know. I think it seems like this is real. I mean, if it's just called an automated, ball strike system, then it's probably just, for balls and strikes. But, on a check swing, I guess you still have to have, a third base umpire and a first base umpire. I'm guessing. I could be wrong, but at least with what I was looking at last night, it didn't seem like that was the case. It didn't seem like there was going to be no human umpires at all. Because what are you going to have? You're going to have a machine at third base, a machine at first base, a machine at second base. I don't think that's not going to happen. But that's another thing is check swings. How is that going to play out? I mean, we'll just have to wait and see. It's but the game is changing, and listen, change sometimes can be good. I'm somebody that doesn't like change at all. I really don't, but it's inevitable. It's inevitable, and especially when you have a problem like this, where the strike zone is very bad. Sometimes umpire strike zones are very bad. You need to do something. You really got to do something, and I'm hoping that MLB addresses this issue as soon as possible, and we see how it goes. We see how it goes. But yeah, that's pretty much it with this topic. Let me know what you guys think. If you guys are in favor of robot umpires, or if you want to keep it the same. There's probably there's definitely people that want to keep, human umpires. Because, again, this is also impacting people's jobs, too. That's another thing, too. When you're replacing a human with a machine, you're impacting someone's livelihood. So that's another thing, too, that you have to look at. So, but yeah, there's a lot of things that go into this. So, but yeah, so that is segment number 2 of today's show. So with that, we are going to take another quick break, and then when we come back, we're going to go over the scores from last night, exactly what the Braves did last night to get the division crown. And Matt Olson did not hit number 52 last night, which I was hoping he would, because I, for some reason, had 52 on my mind, but that didn't happen. So yeah, we'll go through the scores, we'll go through the current standings like we usually do, and then the final segment will be looking at the power rankings that were released earlier in the week. So stick around, and we will be right back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast.